using the Washington Savings deck, which might seem like a weird choice, but I actually have a couple reasons I wanted to use it today. So the first reason is that I wanted to use a deck that glides easily, and you'll see why in the second half of the video. But I also just think this deck is kind of interesting because it has this blue tint to it. Now, in my video where I talked about my decks, I mentioned that when I first bought this deck after I unwrapped it, these were normal white cards. I put the deck away on my shelf, and then a few weeks later I took it off my shelf to use it again, and I saw that all the cards had this blue tint to them. And I was like, that's really strange. Why did that happen? But the jokers here, they say plastic coated with new view tint. So I think this is actually a feature of the cards. I think they're supposed to change color over time. And that's kind of weird and interesting, I think. And I think you can tell that it's on purpose because if you look at the back of the card, the white is still white, but then you flip the card over and the white is now light blue. So yeah, I think that's a deliberate, the cards are specifically designed that way. Anyways, so Cruel Solitaire, this is a game where the aces start on the foundation, so we'll be taking them out for the shuffle. This is a game that I was not super familiar with until recently. It was recommended to me by someone on YouTube. Thank you. Thank you for the recommendation. I think it's a really interesting game now that I've played it more. You can sort of play it in two ways. You can play it as a strategic game or just as a casual game. And we're going to be playing it as both. Our first game is going to be pretty casual. We're not going to be planning too far into the future. We're just going to kind of make the moves we see. And I think this is the way that most people probably play the game. Our second game is going to be more strategic. We're going to be trying to manipulate the redeals, because this is a game that you redeal the tableau many times, and you do not shuffle for the redeal, so you can actually predict where all the cards are going to go after the redeal if you're careful. Like I said, for the first game, we're not really going to worry about that, but on the second game, I'm going to teach you how you can manipulate the redeal to get the cards you want to show up on top. Let's do one more shuffle, and then we'll get into our first game, and I'll explain the rules. So, this is a game that is dealt on a tableau of 12 piles of 4 cards each. Now, for this first game, we're going to deal the way that this game is sort of traditionally dealt, which is that the piles are going to be squared up on top of each other, so you cannot see what's underneath them. Now, it's not a closed game, because obviously, when you're dealing the cards, you can see what's underneath. So all the information is available to the player. It's just a little inconvenient to see sometimes, because the piles are stacked like this. Now, you don't have to stack them like this. You can spread them out if that's easier for you. And in fact, did I miss this pile? I did. We are going to be spreading the piles out once we start playing more strategically, so that we can see where all our cards are and make our plans. But for this first game, we're going to deal it like this, the sort of traditional way. So, the goal of Cruel Solitaire foundation piles are stacked up in suit from ace to king. So we would take the 2 of diamonds and move it onto the ace of diamonds, then we'd move the 3 of diamonds on top of the 2, and then the 4 and the 5, and we would go all the way up to king, and we would do that for each of the 4 piles. On the tableau, we stack in descending sequence by suit. So, for example, we can move the queen of diamonds onto the king of diamonds. We can only move 1 card at a time, and if we empty out a pile, we cannot place any cards in the empty space. So far, this probably sounds like a pretty standard solitaire game, but what really makes Cruel unique is its redeal mechanic. So I've done a bit of research and reading to see what the proper method of redealing in Cruel is, and several of the sources that I've read said that the way I'm going to show you is the correct or traditional way of redealing the cards in Cruel. There are other ways, but supposedly the other ways of dealing the cards actually give you a worse chance at winning the game. The way I'm going to show you gives you the best chance at winning. So what you do is you take the first pile and you put it on top of the second like that, then on top of the third, then on top of the fourth, and you go all the way across from left to right, and then move down to the second row and go from left to right again. And so you end up with this stack of cards from the tableau. Now, when you redeal them, you don't deal them one at a time like you might think. You take them out in piles of 4, like this, and then you put the piles down like that. So you take 4 cards and put them down. You take 4 cards and you put them down, and you repeat this for all 12 piles. Now, if you did not move any cards on the tableau before you picked them up, the order of the cards after the redeal should be exactly the same. The order of the cards should only change if you moved cards around the tableau. And you're allowed to do this as many times as you want. So you can see we've still got the queen and king, we've got the queen and king, we've got the 2 and 3, everything stayed the same. So you just keep playing, making moves and redealing until you reach a point where you cannot make any more moves after a redeal. At which point, if you were to continue redealing, the cards would not change and you would never get any new moves, so the game is just over. And that's basically it. That's how you play Cruel. So let's get started, and like I said, we're gonna take it easy this game. We're just gonna look at the moves that are available, we're gonna play them, and then once we run out of available moves, we will redeal. This is the way that probably most people play this game. We'll get into the try-hard stuff later in the video. We've got our 2 of hearts now. Still no 2 of clubs yet. Oh, there's the 2 of spades. And I think that is all the moves we can make right now. So we're out of moves. We redeal. Exactly the way I showed you before. We take the cards out in batches of 4. And like I said, there are other ways you can redeal this game, but this is the method that I saw is supposedly the correct way, and it is also the way that gives you the best odds of winning. Okay, we can take the 3 of spades. Are there any other moves we can make? We can move the 9 over here. Now we've got the 3 of clubs, but still no 2. And I think that's all we can do for right now. So let's redeal again. And this game can take quite a long time to play. Now you might have noticed that I said we're only going to be playing 2 games today, and that's because each game of Cruel takes quite a long time when you're playing it with real cards. On the computer it's a lot faster. You can just click the redeal button and it instantly redeals. But when you're playing with real cards, it takes a lot longer. But that's okay, we're not in a hurry. Alright. Let's continue. We can move the 4 and the 5 of hearts to the foundation. And look at this, we move the 9. And there's our 2 of clubs. We finally get it. And we can start stacking up this foundation now. All the way up to 7. Very nice. And I think that's all the moves we can make right now, so we redeal again. Okay. Uh-oh. I think our game is over. We don't have any more moves we can make. Yep. So this first game is over. Unfortunately, we ran out of moves. We could redeal again, but like I said, if we redeal here, the cards will just end up in the exact same order. So we cannot win from this position. The game is lost. So that actually was pretty quick for a game, because we lost. We lost pretty quickly. But if you play the game to completion, it usually takes quite a while. In fact, I think we might play another one like that. Let's just play another one where we play the same way. Just because that one ended pretty quickly. Changed my lighting setup a little bit, so I'm hoping it will reduce the glare on the cards. That pesky glare on the cards has been something I've been dealing with ever since I first started recording these videos. I'm hoping this change will finally help resolve that problem. We should have a bit more even lighting now. Okay, let's deal out our second game. And we're gonna deal it the same way we did the first game. We're gonna see if we can get a little bit better luck this time. Let's begin our second game of Cruel Solitaire. Let's take this 2 of spades. We can move this 5 to here, this 5 to here, this 6 to here, this 10 onto this jack onto this queen. Oh, I could have moved the queen onto the king first. Whoops. We'll see if that actually ends up having an effect. But for now, we're just gonna redeal. There we go, we got a 2 of diamonds and a 3 of diamonds on top and a 4. Very nice. So let's take the 2, the 3, and the 4. Now let's see what else we can do. This 6 can go on the 7, that reveals a 2 of hearts. This 8 can go on the 9, that reveals the 3 of hearts. This 5 can go on the 6. This jack can go on the queen, revealing the 3 of spades. And I believe that's it for now. So we'll redeal again. Okay. So let's take the 4 and the 5 of spades. We can take the 5 of diamonds, the 6 and 7 of spades. We can move the queen onto the king. We can move the 9 onto the 10 and then the 8 onto the 9. The jack of diamonds can go here and then the 10 of diamonds can go on top. The queen of spades can go on the king, and now we get the 6 and 7 of diamonds to the foundation. We're still missing the 2 of clubs, unfortunately. We can move the 9 over here. That reveals the 8 of hearts, but we can't do anything with that. So let's redeal again. We're hoping that that 2 of clubs is going to jump out. Nope, the 2 of clubs ended up on the bottom of a pile. But because I have forbidden knowledge, I know that when we move this 8 to the 9, that's gonna bring out the 2 of clubs, and I'll explain how I know that when we get to our final game. And would you look at that? There's our 2 of clubs. What are these arcane secrets? I will teach you. It's really not that complicated, though. Okay, we take the 2 of clubs, and we can take the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we can take the 4 of hearts as well. We can take this 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, and king, and our diamond foundation is complete. this is looking pretty good. Do we have a potential? These foundations are so messed up. Do we have a potential winner here? What's underneath this queen? A 10. Okay. Now, let's see how this redeal ends up. Do we get stuck? Or... no. We do not win. Unfortunately, we came very close. But the final redeal, the ordering of the cards was just not quite right. So you can see that 8 and 9 we need ended up on the bottom of this pile. As did the jack we needed here, also ended up on the bottom. So unfortunately we did not win, but we came quite close. Okay. So let's play one last game. And I'm going to show you how to predict and manipulate the redeals so that the cards you want will end up on top. Now, like I said, it's not that complicated, but it might take a little bit of practice. You might have to try to play the game yourself and see how your moves end up affecting how things work and experiment. And if you have a computer version of the game, like I would recommend Pysol or Solitaire, then it's very easy to experiment because you can undo. So you can make your moves and then undo and see how it changes the way the cards are ordered. So in the description, I'm going to link to Solitaire. It's a solitaire game you can play in your browser. And it has a version of Cruel where the cards are dealt in spread out piles, so you can easily make your moves and see how it affects the redeal. And now, before we get started on this, I just want to say, if you find all this to be too tedious, too complicated, I totally get it. If you just want to play this game the way that I was just playing it, a nice, simple, not too much effort kind of way, that makes perfect sense to me, and you don't have to do all this work. This definitely makes the game much more of a mental exercise, and that might not be what you're looking for in a solitaire game, but that might be exactly what you're looking for in a solitaire game if you're like me. So, let's get started. And this time we are going to deal the tableau in spread out piles, and it's going to end up looking a little bit like a game of Baker's Dozen, if you are familiar with Baker's Dozen. I've played it on my channel a few times. It's an excellent game, and it's going to look like that. So how does this whole redealing business work? Well, the way I like to think of it is that we are pushing and pulling the cards. So when all of the piles have 4 cards in them, like they do right here, the cards are in sort of a state of equilibrium. if we redeal the cards now, they will be exactly the same as how we left them. It starts changing once we start getting piles that have more or less than 4 cards in them. So, let's take an example. Let's say I take this 2 of spades and move it to the foundation. Now, we're not going to necessarily commit to that. I'm going to move it back once I'm done explaining, but what happens is that these 3 cards end up getting pulled down towards us, and the empty space in the back needs to be filled. It ends up getting filled by the top card of this pile. So this 5 would move up here, and this 6 would be on top of this pile. And so it would end up right here. Then this pile would get pulled down, and the empty space here would get filled by the 3, and the 5 would become the top card. And it would continue like that. It's a ripple effect. And it would continue to the rest of the field. Now, it's a little different if instead of moving a card to the foundation, if we moved a card from one pile to another. So let's say, pretend this is an 8 of spades. It's not, but let's say that's an 8 of spades and we move the 7. The same thing would happen. We would pull these cards and it would get replaced by the top card of the next pile, and that ripple effect would continue until we reach this point. And then when this card moves to the back to fill in the next pile, this pile still has 4 cards in it. So the equilibrium is restored, so to speak, and then the rest of the piles will stay the same. So it only affects up to the point where you moved the card to, and then it goes back to normal. Now it also works the other way too. We talked about pulling the cards, but you can also push the cards. So let's demonstrate that. Let's say we take this 2 of clubs and we move it on top of this 3 of clubs. What happens? This pile has more than 5 cards in it. This pile would get pushed back like that, and then the 5 would get popped out the back, and it would end up on the top of this pile. And then this pile, since it now has 5 cards, it would get pushed back. The 5 would get popped out the back, and it would end up on top of this 9. And again, it would create a ripple effect that would continue until it reaches the point where you took the card from. So once it reaches here, this card would pop out the back, it would end up on top. This pile now has 4 cards on it, the equilibrium is restored, and then there would be no more movement of cards beyond that point. So, to sum it up, when you remove cards, the cards get pulled towards you. When you add cards, the cards get pushed towards the back. It's a bit hard to wrap your head around at first. It takes some practice. Like I said, I would highly recommend going into Solitaire and experimenting with this yourself to see how it works. But once you understand it, it gives you a whole lot of options when you're playing this game. And let's see how we can do that right now. How can we use this strategy to get the cards that we want to show up? Well, let's start with an example. Let's move this 2 of clubs and this 3 of clubs to the foundation. We moved the 3. This 2 is going to get pulled down by 1. We need to pull it by another card if we want it to end up on top. So we take the 2 of spades now. We took 2 cards. This 2 is going to get pulled down 2 spaces, and it's going to end up on top, and we'll be able to take it after we redeal. So let's demonstrate that by redealing now. Since these piles all have 4 cards in them, they're not going to change. So to just save time, we're not going to even bother picking those cards up. They're going to be the same regardless. So we'll start the redeal from the pile that we actually changed. We pick up all the cards, and then we redeal. And look at that. Our 2 of diamonds ended up on top of its pile. Just like we predicted. Now, here's the kind of tedious thing. After you deal out all the piles like this, you have to spread them out again. And this is kind of a annoying, tedious thing. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this part out of the video. I'm going to deal out the piles like this, and then I'm going to cut to once I've already spread out all the piles so you don't have to watch me do it. So there we go. Let's plan out our next move. So I think I see how we can get this 3 of diamonds. So we're going to take the 2 of diamonds, then we redeal from here. That 5 is going to end up on top now. And now if we move this 5 over to here, that is going to push the 3 over to here. So we redeal from here now. And now our 3 of diamonds ends up on top of a pile. Now that we've got this 5 here, we can actually get to the 2 and 3 right here. So first we're going to take this, because if we don't take it now, then it's going to get lost. After we make this next move, it'll get pushed over to here. Oh, actually it wouldn't. Never mind. Whatever. But anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to move this 4 to here. Now this is going to get pulled and this is going to get pulled. And so those two should end up on top on the next deal. So let's redeal now. Redeal the entire tableau because we changed the first pile. There's our 2 of hearts right on top. There's our 3 of spades right on top. Let's make sure we have room to spread these out. Okay, now what's our next target here? Now I would like to get this 3 of hearts right here. Can we pull it down 3 spaces? And the answer is yes, we can. We can take this 2 of hearts, the 3 of spades, and the 4 of diamonds, and that's also going to pull this 4 of spades down as well. Now I'm actually thinking that we probably should have only pulled these 2. And then that would have brought the 4 of clubs down to the top, and then we could have taken that. But it's too late now. Hopefully we will not regret that. But that sort of just goes to show that there's a lot to consider in this game. When you're playing it strategically, it's actually a very deep game with a lot of tricky decision making that you need to be aware of. This 3. Now, what do we want to go for next? And I'm thinking we're going to do this. We're going to take the 4, 5, and 6 of spades. And now that's going to pull these 2 cards down, the 4 and the 5 of hearts. And we'll be able to grab both of those. So there's the 5. And there's the 4. And let's take these cards. Now we want to get to this 5. And we also want to get to this 4. Now if we had a way to push both of these cards out, that would be very, very useful, but I don't think we do. We do have a way to get the 4 out. And I think that'll be good enough for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this 6 here, and we're going to move this 10 here, and that should push the 4 of clubs out to the top of the next pile. Now we still have to find a way to get to that 5, but we'll see if we can do that after we redeal. actually get to our 5 by doing this. We move the 7 to here, and then we take the 4, and that will pull the 5 down by 1. So now we redeal. There's our 5. However, I think we might be reaching a point where we're starting to run out of moves. Wait, we can get to the 5 like so. We take this, we move this to here, we take the 7, this 6 and this 5 both get pulled down. Alright. There we go. Now, I'm scared that we're gonna run out of moves soon. We do have a few problems. We have this 6 of hearts and this 6 of clubs. Okay, but we can actually get the 6 of clubs. I'm looking right now. And then we might be able to get the 6 of hearts as well. Here's how we get the 6 of clubs. We play the 5, 6, and 7 of diamonds. Then we move the 7 of hearts here, and the 6 gets pushed out. Let's see where that leaves us. There's our 6 of clubs. And that 9 of diamonds might be useful too. Now our big question mark is if we have a way to get this 6 of hearts out of here. Let's start by doing this. Now I believe this pulls the 8 to the top, and we might be able to move the 8 onto here, and then that might push. No, that's not going to work that way because the 9 is going to end up under the jack. Do we want to move this? I think we do. Oh, but the 8 is not going to end up on top then. Gotta think about this. This is gonna seem weird, but I think this is how we do this. Let's hope I'm not overlooking something. Okay. This might lead to victory, but I could be very wrong. We're getting into very scary territory right now. Let's try that. Okay. Now, I think we move this 8 to here. We don't play it to the foundation. I think we move it. That pushes the 7 out, and it pushes the 9 out. We'll be able to grab the 9, 8, 10, or the 8, 9, 10, and then the jack, queen, and the king. Okay, I really hope that works. this 7 here. This queen is also covering the jack, or the king is covering the jack queen. I think I have a plan. And now I think we do 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, and 8. And now I think we redeal. And if I am correct, I think this leads to a victory. I'm really hoping I'm not wrong. Okay. So we take the 7 and the 8. Now, I think we did it. We move this king to the foundation. We move the 9 and the queen. The 10 goes here, and now we can take the 9, 10, jack, queen, and king of hearts. And now we just take the rest of them. That's awesome. I'm so glad we won. Okay. Nice. That's how you can use a bit more advanced strategy to win a game of Cruel. I'm glad we were able to win. Sometimes even when I'm using the strategy, I can't manage to win, but I'm so glad I was able to show it. So I can show that it's actually pretty useful and effective. It's not just a waste of time. So that was Cruel Solitaire. That's going to be it for the night. I hope you enjoyed it. Whether or not you decide to play the game with the advanced strategy or if you just play it the simple way, I hope you enjoy the game if you try it yourself. I hope you found this relaxing, and I hope you have a good night and sleep well. Thank you so much for watching.